So should the U.S. switch to, consider switching to a year-round schooling program?
So our current education system is displayed here. We got this graph from the National Association of Year-Round Schooling.
With the red bits representing what we currently have off as vacation, and the I touched the board, that was my fault. Okay, and the blue pieces representing days we're in school.
So this is also from the same website.
Alright, so this is the 45-15 schedule. So 45 days in school and then 15-day break. This is one of our solutions that we'll get into later in the presentation.
Clearly, it does look a lot more balanced than the previous schedule, however. I'm pretty sure we can all agree with that.
Right, there are many similarities between the current school system we have and the year-round school system.
So we still have 180 days of schooling, so we're still meeting the requirement if we switch to year-round schooling. But at the same time, we also have graduation that occurs at the same time, so there's no concern about applying for colleges. And we also got the same amount of hours per school day, and this is all provided by the California Department of Education.
So should America switch? We think yes. The pros and cons came from the Congressional Research Service. On the pros side, diminished summer learning loss, which is, we'll get more into later.
Indeed. And we also reduce student and teacher burnout.
It's also consistent learning and breaks instead of just having a big break during the summer prolonging.
And a summer learning program would also help to create a more consistent staff pay schedule.
And as for the cons, we also have the fact that it's difficult to implement, at least governmental-wise.
Yeah, and summer activities will usually become null and kind of boring near the end of summer.
There's also a lot of opposition from parents and students.
And also like the government and like other associations as well. So we have the 90-30 calendar. So there are multiple different types of year-round schooling. The 90-30 is the least common out of them all, but it's still a year-round schooling schedule. So basically we have these huge sections being schooling periods, and then we've also got these two sections. And then we've also got those two sections being our break periods. So it's not that different from our current schooling system, other than the fact that we have here one month-long break in the summer and 1 month-long break in the winter. However, it's very, very long schooling periods and very long breaks, causing more learning loss. So therefore, we don't think this is a viable solution.
Another one of the solutions is the 60-20 calendar. It's a little bit more broken up compared to the 90-30, but the problem with this one is it breaks the school year into trimesters, so it's kind of hard to implement into colleges which have quarters and high schools which have semesters.
So this is the 45-15 calendar, which is the solution we'll be focusing on most, being that it's split into quarters, which works, it's more conducive with the semesters, as Jacob mentioned, and the quarters with colleges. It's also more consistent as far as breaks being split out, which is beneficial to student learning.
Right. And we got all of this information also from the California Department of Education. Now, of course, we don't include things like Thanksgiving breaks in the graphs, but it still gives you a general idea of what's going on.
So another part that the year-round schooling would help with is the summer learning loss, which creates a huge achievement gap here between low-income students, which are more vulnerable, versus middle and high-income students, which tend to be less vulnerable, but that is a stereotype.
Alright, summer learning loss. Information for this we got from pbs.org. 10 to 20% of the information learned is lost.
And the loss also accumulates, as Jeff Mink says from the New York Times.
And another bit is the beginning of the school year is oftentimes spent reviewing materials from the previous year. If this were shortened, then more material could be taught or material could be gone over in more depth.
Now for memory. So there was this research that was conducted by H.F. Spitzer in 1939. And he did an experiment where he took 7th grade students and taught them material from a textbook. Now from this textbook, after one day, only 50% of the material was learned. As this continued, the loss accumulates without review. So it proves that information is best learned when there is review, otherwise loss again accumulates. So burnout. This occurs when you are overworked to a certain point, and students and teachers are usually very vulnerable to this.
This generally ends in decreased efforts towards grades,
as well as decreased efforts from possibly even teachers who are trying to teach material to students. And this was also provided by the Mayo Clinic.
So consistency. Consistency is what we were talking about earlier with the schedule broken up into different pieces, quarters in this case, which helps to eliminate the learning loss we were talking about from over the summer.
It also means less time spent reviewing material that you've already started to learn. And it also really helps with teacher pay, which there are some problems with.
Because a lot of teachers, they don't get paid over the summer, so they're usually forced to get other jobs.
So the importance of breaks, which we've kind of been going over, but just to summarize, helps to reduce burnout by a lot.
Yeah. And then we've also got growth and development, which is essential, as the Boston College says, to especially teenagers who are still growing and developing.
Yeah, and then there's attention. You tend to have more attention when you get more off time, and then you come back and you're all fresh-minded, and just energy and ready to go.
So difficulties with implementing this. There's a general lack of summer activities, being that students are in school for part of the summer.
And there's also the fact that, of course, if this was more beneficial, how would the government implement this? Because, of course, we have our school year that ends in summer, but usually, typically, year-round schooling starts during summer. So how do we make the transition from our current schooling system to year-round schooling?
There's also a little bit of economic resettlement in local areas, being that over the summer a lot of income goes into like campgrounds and water parks, which now, I mean, that's going to have to change a little bit, being that students are in school for more of the summer.
So in conclusion, we still believe that despite the difficulties that we might have with implementing year-round schooling and the economic factors that it can cause, we still believe that it's beneficial, especially to us students and the teachers, to have year-round schooling implemented.
Thank you.
Anna, we'll start with you. You guys had quite a few counter arguments. So overall, what do you think was the strongest counter argument to your solution or conclusion that your team identified, and why?
The strongest counter argument I found was the economic resettlement that I mentioned with parks and the campgrounds and such, which that would affect the community a little more.
Thank you. Lena, having finished your project, what, if anything, do you consider to be a gap in your team's research that, if addressed, would make you feel more confident about your conclusion?
So during the difficulty slide, we did mention that there could be some possible troubles with implementing it governmentally, and none of us did any research because that wasn't on our lens. So we never did any research governmental-wise. We did a little bit, but I would have liked to have gone into further depth for that.
Thanks. And last, Jacob, in the future, what change would you make to your group norms? And how would you expect that to improve the team presentation?
Spread out the work a little more. We tended to have little parts where we did a lot of work instead of just spreading it out throughout. So, can done more productively would be nice.
Thank you.